Hey guys, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is this is our early week 4 predictions for the 2024 NFL football season. Week 3 is wrapping up as of right now. The 2 Monday night games have not happened as of the time of me recording this video, so there's still a couple games left over, but it's never too early to get started looking at our next week's matchups, because we have some pretty good ones coming on, and there's a couple teams that are dying to get a win right now. There's some big matchups coming on the horizon starting in week 4. Every single week we go over the best bets. We do money lines, spreads, over-unders for both the NFL games and every single college football game every week. Like I was saying, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so that you can follow along with us. But let's go ahead and get started just running through these games. Like I said, this is our early predictions. We'll be coming up with one later this week. But our very first game that we have kicking things off, starting out our Thursday night matchup, Thursday, September 26th at 8:15 p.m. This is our Amazon Prime game. We have the 1-2 Dallas Cowboys versus the 1-2 New York Giants. Dallas comes in here. They are 5-point favorites on the road. The over-under is 44.5. Who would have thought that at week 4, Dallas and the Giants would have the same exact record? That just lets you know so far through the first 3 weeks how bad things are for the Dallas Cowboys right now. They had that loss, which I did predict in week 3 versus the Baltimore Ravens, but at least they came back. They fought hard at the very end of the fourth quarter. They showed some fight there, but it wasn't enough. The most alarming thing here for Dallas is their defense has been awful. So Dallas is coming in here. They are averaging right now 25.7 points a game, but their defense is giving up 29.7 points a game. They've had a top 5 defense for the last several years. They have one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL right now. That's pretty bad, especially with their payroll. They still have playmakers. They still have Dak. They have CeeDee Lamb, but where's their run game? Dowdle is not going to cut it at the running back position, leading this team running with 88 yards in the first 3 games. They got to get the running game right. They got to get the defense right. For the Giants, they finally got their first win. Daniel Jones actually had a pretty decent game, but I'm sorry, I'm not buying it as some permanent thing going forward. The Giants here, they average 15 a game. They give up 21.3 a game. They're at home. They're the underdog. The biggest thing for them is they have Singletary at running back. They have Neighbors at the wide receiver position. They still have a foundational number 1 piece going forward, but the Giants are not going to be good this year. They need to draft a quarterback, someone for the future going forward. I have Dallas winning this one on the road, 24-17, covering the spread, but I'm just barely going with the under, but I wouldn't be surprised if that comes down by the time that we get to kickoff. We're now moving on to our Sunday matchups, kicking things off Sunday, September 29th at 1 p.m. on Fox. The 2-1 New Orleans Saints versus the 1-2 Atlanta Falcons. The Saints on the road, they are going to be the underdogs. The Falcons here, 1-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5. The Saints finally got their first loss. It was a very close game versus the Eagles, but the Saints have been rolling. They've been averaging over 40-something per game. The first 2 games, they've been having a solid defense, but the Eagles were there. The Eagles actually had a complete game. The offense cut down on the turnovers. That was their massive issue, and their defense played solid. And New Orleans finally sputtered out. Like I said, they were averaging over 40 a game. After their week 3 performance, they're down to averaging 34.3 points a game. Still solid defensive performance. They're only giving up 14.7 points per game. For the Falcons, they just had that really close loss versus the Chiefs. Just happened at the time of me recording this video, but they fought hard in the fourth quarter, brought the game to being really close. Couple of flags there, almost won the game, but they did lose it. But they showed that they can compete with the top tier teams. They were really bad week 1. They got a lot better week 2, and I'm going to say that they got even better week 3 because they were competing blow for blow with the Super Bowl champs. Right now, they're averaging 17 a game. Their defense is giving up 19.5. When you look at these 2 squads, Derek Carr finally had a bad game week 3, but he's been solid, having an MVP-type season through the first 2 weeks. And then you have Kamara, who's really lighting things up on the ground, also catching passes out the backfield. You have Olave. You have legitimate weapons at every single position on this team, and they have a solid defense. But the Falcons are also loaded. Kirk Cousins is getting more comfortable in the scheme. They have a solid defense. They have a solid line. They have Bijan Robinson. They have Algiers. They have Pitts. They have London. They also have weapons at every position. This is actually one of the better top-to-bottom offensive rosters in the NFL. Falcons are 1-point favorites. I'm going to go with the Falcons to win this game, winning this one 20-17, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. The Falcons, to me, seem to be getting better every single week, so look to that to continue here. The next matchup we're looking at also at 1 p.m. on Sunday on Fox, the 1-2 LA Rams visiting the 1-2 Chicago Bears. Chicago at home, they're going to be the favorites here. They're 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is 40.5. So the Rams are coming off of that really good win versus the 49ers. That was a solid win. 49ers, even with the pieces they were down, they still have one of the better rosters in the NFL. They still have a top 10 defense. They still have a top 10 offense. And the Rams beat them fair and square to end the game. What about Stafford? They're down Cooper Kupp. They're down Nakua. They put the game on Stafford. They put the game on Williams. They still ran the ball. He was still making passes when he had to make passes. He showed how valuable experience is at the starting position in the NFL. They had a great game. They won it when they had to win it. When you're looking at the Chicago Bears, yes, they lost, but Caleb Williams had his best game so far. He had an awful week 1. I think he had 93 yards. Week 2, he had like 170 yards. This past weekend, he had almost 400 yards passing. They lost the game, but that's a massive improvement. Bears have a really good roster. They have Williams, Swift, Moore, Odunze. They have weapons there. They have a solid defense, but Stafford shows he can beat the better team. But this game is almost, to me, practically a 50-50 game because the Rams are still down a lot of weapons. We don't know when Nakua and Kupp together will be back on the field, but Stafford doesn't always need them. But the Bears are going to make things tough because Williams is getting better every single week. But I'm going to go with the Rams to win this one 24-20. I do not have the spread being covered, and I'm going with the over. Then our next game, the rivalry matchup at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 3-0 Minnesota Vikings, who would have thought, versus the 2-1 Green Bay Packers. Like I said, this game is at 1 p.m. We have the Packers here are 2-point favorites. The over-under is 46 points. The Packers, they're banged up, but it really doesn't matter. They're having a great season so far. Jordan Love goes down. Willis starts this game. Now, they were saying that Jordan Love was questionable this game. So as of week 4, it is very possible that he actually plays this week. We don't know that for sure yet as of the recording of this video, but he was questionable week 3. So if he's questionable, he might definitely be probable for week 4. But Green Bay is averaging 25 a game. They're giving up 19.3. But what about the Vikings? What a season they are having. They are almost the underdogs every single game, and they keep winning. Darnold having a great season so far, slinging the ball up and down the field. They're averaging 28.3 a game. Their defense is only giving up 10. They have Darnold. They have Aaron Jones. They have Justin Jefferson, potentially the best wide receiver in the NFL. But the Packers, outside of Jacobs, Willis is having a good season so far, filling in for Jordan Love. They're keeping the ball on the ground. They're running it. They're sucking up clock. They are at home. They're riding a win right now. But the Vikings just keep winning. So till they lose, I have to ride that train. I have the Vikings winning this one on the road, winning it 28-20. The spread not being covered, but I will be going with the over. The next matchup we're looking at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers versus the 1-2 Colts. The Steelers here, they're on the road. They're 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5. This game is basically a pick-em. This is going to be a close game because the Steelers, they're not necessarily lighting it up on offense, but under Tomlin, you know they're going to have a top 10 defense led by Watt. They're going to get physical. They're going to stack the line. They're going to get a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. When you're looking at the Colts, They have an average defense. They have Richardson at the quarterback position. He's a mobile quarterback. He had some passes on Sunday that showed what he's capable of, and then he also had some passes that you just wondered what was he seeing? He wasn't throwing to anyone that was wide open. The ball gets picked off. So he shows his highs, he shows his lows, but he has his legs. I was never high on Richardson coming out of Florida, but a lot of people love the intangibles, the physical ability that he had that has not translated so far to the NFL. But we still haven't really seen him play that many games because he got hurt at the very beginning of last season. But the Colts, they don't have a bad team. They come in here, they're at home, they're averaging 19.3 a game. Their defense is giving up 20.3. The Steelers, they're averaging 17 a game. A top 10, top 5 defense, only giving up 8.7 points per game. They have two quarterbacks. They have Fields. They have Russell Wilson. As of right now, Wilson hasn't started. Fields has been the guy. I would continue to ride that train. He has the higher ceiling. He has his legs. He's younger. He makes better decisions with the ball. Russell Wilson was awful last season. I don't really see the point of putting him on the field unless Fields gets hurt. Keep the guy that's going to get you the least amount of turnovers, play solid defense, run the ball, suck up the clock, play special teams. That's actually what Tomlin wants to do. Ride Harris, run it down their throat. When you need a third and long, that's what Pickens is there for. And then you have the Colts. But the Colts actually have a pretty good roster. They have one of the best running backs in the country, Jonathan Taylor. He can run it. He can catch it. They have Pierce. They have weapons there, but the Steelers are going to be bringing that defense. Defense travels on the road. That's why they're the favorites. I have the Steelers winning this one in a pretty close game, low-scoring game. That's the Steelers' way. They win it 17-14. Very low scoring, but they do cover the spread, and I'm going with the under. The next one we're looking at also at 1 on CBS, the 1-2 Denver Broncos. They finally got that first win. They'll be playing the 2-1 New York Jets. The Jets are at home. They're going to be the favorites. They are 8-point favorites. That's a pretty big spread. The over-under is 43 points. When you look at these two teams, obviously, like I mentioned, Denver got their first win this past weekend. Bo Nix actually had a really good game. He was throwing it up and down the field. We know he's going to have a high completion percentage usually, but he's had a lot of picks this season. He looked awful week 1. Looked a little better, but still awful week 2. Actually looked pretty good this past weekend. So maybe he's getting better. Maybe he's getting more comfortable in Sean Payton's scheme. However, he's still the leading rusher. He's coming in here. He has 107 rushing yards, 600 passing yards. That's not sustainable for your quarterback. In week 4 to be the leading rusher, Sean Payton has to generate some type of ground game, especially versus the Jets. Jets have a top 10 defense. They're going to stack the line on Bo Nix. They're going to blitz him. They're going to come on the edges, try to bottle him up, keep him from scrambling, force him to throw the ball. You need a run game to complement the quarterback. He can't be the run game, especially when he's a rookie quarterback. They have Reynolds. They have some weapons there. They are coming in here. They are averaging 17.3 points a game. They're giving up 15.3 points per game. So defense isn't the issue. It's the offense getting first downs outside of week 3. For the Jets, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, he missed a full season, missed the majority of the preseason. But you could see since week 1, he's also getting more and more comfortable in this scheme, which he's very familiar with since week 1. He's gotten better every single game. We know what he's capable of. He was actually scrambling this past week. He's a pretty old quarterback. He still has it. He still has the arm strength. He still has the intangibles on the field when you need it. The Jets average 22.3 points a game. They give up 17.3 points a game. They have Rodgers. They have Hall, who's having a great season catching the ball, running the ball. They have Garrett Wilson. They have the weapons there. They have the defense. They have the experienced quarterback. I have to go with the Jets to win this one at home, winning it 20-13. So not covering the spread, I'm going with the under, but I'm pretty sure that spread is going to move down. The next matchup we're looking at also at 1 on Fox, the 2-1 Philadelphia Eagles versus the 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay at home, they're going to be the underdogs. You have the Eagles coming in here, 2.5-point favorites, the over-under 48.5. Vegas has this being a pretty high-scoring game. When you look at the Eagles, they had a massive win on Sunday. Why? They were having an awful season so far. They were moving the ball, they were scoring, but they were having a lot of turnovers. They basically picked up right where they left off last season. The second half of last season was awful. They were losing games. They were getting scorched on defense. They picked where they left off last season, this season, the offense, turnovers, but yet scoring, and the defense was giving up points. They came in, they played the Saints, the highest scoring team in the NFL with a top 10 defense, and they beat them. They cut down on the turnovers. Hurts had a great game. They lost Brown. They lost Smith. They still found a way to win the game. That shows you the level of talent. When the game comes down to it, they still have the ability to win the game anytime, any place, versus any teams. Massive props to them for overcoming those obstacles week 3. Tampa Bay, they lost week 3, but this is still a very solid team. Baker Mayfield having a great season. They picked up where they left off last season. They have the running game. They have Irving. They have Godwin. They have Evans. They have a really good defense. Mainly, their pass rush. They're very good at getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, shutting the run game. Yes, it did not work week 3, but still, this is a playoff caliber team. They will make the playoffs this season. They are at home. But the Eagles showed me what I always knew they have. I have to ride with the Eagles this week, getting back-to-back wins, winning this one 23-20, covering the spread, and I'm going with the under here. The next game we're looking at, also at 1 on Fox, the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals versus the 1-2 Carolina Panthers. Like I was saying, the Monday games have not happened as of me recording this video. The Bengals do play on Monday, so they might have their first win here. But the Bengals here on the road, they're 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5. When you're looking at this game, this is a pretty interesting one because the Bengals, they don't have their win yet. They looked awful week 1. But then they played the Chiefs really close in week 2. We know they have a good roster. We know they have a pretty decent defense. They have a good line. They have Burrow, Moss, Gesicki, Chase, Higgins should be back. So this team's going to be a lot better. They're getting better every single week. This is a playoff team. The Panthers, obviously they bench Bryce Young. They bring in Andy Dalton. He has a great game in week 3. They finally win a game. The Panthers were the worst team in the country last year. They're still the worst team in the NFL this season. I'm not buying the fact that they won one game. That's great. Props to them. Props for Dalton coming off the bench last minute, winning a game. He had 3 touchdowns. He was slinging the ball up and down the field. They were running the ball with Hubbard. I think Thielen got hurt, but he seems to be fine. Very solid performance. Their defense actually played well, too. You never see that from the Panthers, and they have a really bad line. The line held up. Dalton made the throws when he had to make them. Great performance, but I'm not buying them as now being a 500 team going forward. The Bengals need to keep winning. They're 0-2. They have to get back in the mix. They have to win Monday night. They have to win this game. They have to get back to 500. I have the Bengals winning this one 28-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. Then at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 0-2 Jacksonville Jaguars, who haven't played yet because Monday night hasn't happened, versus the 2-1 Houston Texans. You have the Texans here at home. They are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 47 points. They have this being a pretty high-scoring game. The Texans did drop their first game this past weekend, but we still know they have a very solid team. They have Stroud, they have Mixon, they have Collins, Diggs is back. They play solid defense. They can move the ball, they can score on anyone, but this past weekend showed where they can drop games that they're typically favored to win. When you're looking at Jacksonville, they have a lot of question marks. They're playing Monday night. They might get their first win there. They might lose it. Either way, this is a game that Jacksonville would win. The game that they're not favored in, they come in there and then they actually get the surprise win. They don't have a bad roster, but they have a lot of issues. They have defensive issues. They have offensive line issues. They have Etienne at running back. He needs to play a lot better. Trevor Lawrence got that big contract. He needs to play a lot better, especially with his decision-making in crunch time. Doug Peterson, he's very good at playing when they're down. Once they get the lead, that's when a lot of questions come in. He's not good at holding the lead. He gets too conservative. They have talent there. They do need a true number one wide receiver. They have Thomas Jr., they have Kirk, but not a true legitimate number one threat. But still, they have a balanced team if they play well. That's been the issue since last season. I have to go with the Texans to win this one at home, 20-17. Not cover the spread, going with the under. But like I said, this is the type of game that the Jags win. When they're the underdogs, they're probably going to take it. So there is that possibility, but I'm going to go with the better team. Then the next game we're looking at could easily be a shootout at 4:05 p.m. on Fox. The 1-1 Washington Commanders, who haven't played yet, versus the 1-2 Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals at home, they're going to be the favorites. They are 5-point favorites. The over-under is 46 points. This game has all of the markings to be a high-scoring shoot-'em-out game. Could come down to the final possession. Washington. Daniels is having a great rookie season so far. They average 20.5 points a game. Their defense is still Swiss cheese. They give up 27.5 points a game. They still have offensive line problems, but Daniels has shown what he's capable of. He cut down on the running from week 1 to week 2. That's great. You don't want him rushing for 88 yards per game. That's not going to cut it, but Robinson Jr. had a great week 2 performance. They have Eckler, so he has guys to dump the ball off, guys that can take pressure off of him. They need to get the defense down, though, because the Cardinals can score. No matter who they play, they have a very talented offense. They have Kyler Murray. They had Connor. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. They have the weapons to score on almost any team. They average 27.3 points a game. They give up 21.3 points a game. The Cardinals' biggest issue is their pass rush. They basically get no pressure on opposing quarterbacks. If they do that with Daniels, he's going to scramble. He is going to run for first downs. You have to bottle him up, keep him in that pocket, force him to throw. I have the Cardinals winning this one at home, 27-23. So not covering the spread, but still going over. Then at 4:05 p.m. on Fox, the 1-2 New England Patriots versus the 1-2 San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco is the favorite here at home. A pretty big spread, 10.5-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. So Vegas basically has this game being a beatdown. You can understand why. So the Patriots, when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. You have Jacoby Brissett. You have Drake May, two guys that aren't necessarily very good right now. They can be serviceable somewhat. They had that week 1 performance. They had a very close game week 2. They got beat up by the Jets week 3. They still have a decent defense, but their offense is so awful. Stevenson had a couple good running games, but they're only averaging 13 points a game. Their defense is giving up 19 points a game. For the 49ers are 1-2. Let that sink in. This is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, but they are banged up. McCaffrey's still out. Debo out. Ayuk is healthy somewhat. He's not having his best season so far. Kittle's banged up. They have a lot of weapons, though. They can still run the ball. They can still throw the ball, but Purdy has to play a lot better. They have to move the ball. Someone has to step up. Jennings has basically been filling in as the wide receiver number 1. Mason's having a great game running the ball. He's closing in on 400 yards through the first 3 weeks. That's a great performance, but they have to be able to go vertical. They let the game slip away week 3. Now they're 1-2. They cannot afford to go from Super Bowl to week 3 to 1-3 after 4 weeks. They average 24.3 points a game. They have to get that back up to 30 like they were last year, and they're giving up 23 points a game. They had a top 5 defense last season. So the offense has taken a step back. Defense has taken a step back. They are banged up, but they still have a top 10 roster. I have the San Francisco winning this one at home, 28-16. So still covering that really big spread, but I will be going with the under. Then our next game we're looking at 4:25 p.m. on CBS, the 1-2 Cleveland Browns visiting the 1-2 Las Vegas Raiders. The Browns on the road are 1-point favorites. This game is virtually a pick-'em. The over-under is 44 points. The Browns. Deshaun Watson he's not the same player he was 3 to 4 seasons ago. He has all the off-the-field stuff that happened over the last couple of years. He was suspended. He has more off-the-field stuff going on this season. Might he get suspended at some point this year? That is possible, but even if he doesn't, he is playing awful. He's been getting sacked like 5 or 6 times a game. Some of that's on his line. Some of that's on him. He's not playing well at all. He got that massive contract. He's definitely not living up to his side. They're only averaging 16.7 points a game. This is not a bad roster by any means. They have a top 10 defense. Defense travels on the road, But the defense is going to get wore out if Deshaun Watson cannot get a first down. They are giving up 22.3 points a game. You have Deshaun Watson, you have Ford, Judy, Cooper. There's weapons there, except at the quarterback position so far because he's playing so bad. For the Raiders, yes, they lost this past weekend. They basically gave up the second half. Pierce bashed his team, but the Raiders actually have a good defense when they're playing aggressive. They are averaging 19.3 points a game. Yes, they're giving up 27 points a game. That's pretty bad, but we know the level of talent they have on the defensive side of the ball. They are a lot better than the amount of points that they've given up so far through the first 3 weeks. Gardner Minshew, he's closing in on 800 yards through the first 3 weeks. He's kind of a 50-50 guy. He's kind of a Jekyll Hyde. He can have a great game. He can throw for 3 touchdowns. He can throw for 2 or 3 picks. So it's kind of a 50-50. You never know what you're going to get. That's where the question lies here. They have White. They have Devontae Adams. They can move the ball. They can play defense at times. The Browns are just kind of a train wreck right now. I'm going to go with the Raiders to take this one. I have the Raiders winning this one 20-17, the spread not getting covered, and I'm going with the under. This next game could have been a really fun game at 4:25 p.m. on CBS. The 3-0 defending Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, versus the 2-1 LA Chargers. The Chargers are going to be the underdogs at home. Chiefs, 9.5-point favorites. A massive spread when it's two pretty good teams. The over-under here is 45 points. Kansas City, they averaged 26.5 points a game. They give up 22.5 points a game. They had a top 3 defense last season. Their defense has not played up to that caliber this year, but they're still a top 10 defense, especially in crunch time when they need to perform. This is a veteran, experienced team, a very well-coached team. So their defense is better than they look statistically because when they need stops, they get stops. They can score. They can play defense. They have a top 3 kicker in the NFL. So they could beat you offense, defense, special teams. Very well-rounded team. Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco's hurt, but you have Rice, Worthy. Lots of weapons on this team. They are capable of beating you multiple ways. For the Chargers, Herbert's banged up. He was in a walking boot when the game ended. We don't know if he's going to be playing or not week 4. That's a massive question mark. If he plays, the Chargers could potentially win this game. They could definitely keep that spread under. But I don't know, because if it's a Heineke playing, he's not very good. So I don't necessarily see them competing. They weren't using Herbert too much. It's not like past years when they were relying on him to throw for 300 yards. He was only throwing for 130, 140 yards a game. And they were basically just running the ball. J.K. Dobbins running downhill nonstop. Johnson catching the ball when they had to. And they were playing solid defense. So the Chargers come in here. They average 19.3 a game. Very solid defense. They're only giving up 11. But if Herbert doesn't play, that's a massive loss. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He hasn't put up big numbers this season, but it's because they haven't needed him to yet. If they needed him for a shootout, he's more than capable of lighting things up. But if he's hurt, the Chiefs are going to feast on the quarterback. I have the Chiefs winning this one 27-13, covering the spread. I'm going with the under. And I only have them scoring 13 because there's a massive question mark at the quarterback position. With him in a walking boot, I have to guess as of now that he's probably not going to play in week 4. This next one is the game of the weekend to me at 8:20 p.m. on NBC, the final Sunday night game. The 2-0 Buffalo Bills versus the 1-2 Baltimore Ravens. The Bills on the road here, 2.5 points favorites. The over-under 46.5. This is going to be a high-scoring, fun game. I think whoever has the ball last wins this game. So it's a 50-50. It could go either way. We have two teams that can score. We have two teams that can play solid defense. So the Buffalo comes in here. They average 32.5 points a game. Baltimore 23.7, but they're a lot better than that 23.7. And on defense, Buffalo gives up 19 points a game. Baltimore gives up 26.0 points a game. But Baltimore last year had a top 5 defense. A lot of those guys are back. Statistically, they're going to finish the year a lot better than that 26 points a game. Baltimore was the number 1 rushing team in the NFL last season. Just this season so far, they added Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson has ran for over 80 yards 2 2 out of the 3 games. So they're still running the ball down people's throats. They are rushing right now for 203.3 yards per game, throwing for 227 yards per game. A very balanced team, very good offense. They have Jackson, they have Derrick Henry, they have Flowers, they have Andrews, they have Likely. Weapons all over the field, but Buffalo, they lost Diggs. They lost a lot of players on the defensive side from last season because they had a lot of cap issues. And it actually seems like Buffalo actually got better so far through the first 3 weeks this season. Josh Allen, the game is not on his shoulders right now, so he's not having to make the typical Josh Allen decisions. He can just kind of sit back, throw it when he has to throw it. When he needs that first down, you know that he can throw for it. You know that he can run for it. Cook is leading this team running the ball, and they have Shakur, they have Coleman, they have weapons at wide receiver. Yes, they're young, but this is actually a better team than their star-studded team they had last year. I have Buffalo winning this one, 27-24, covering the spread. I'm going with the over. But like I said, this game could go either way. If the Ravens won it 27-24, I would not be surprised in any way. And this week we have 2 Monday night games. Monday, September 30th at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. 0-3 winless Tennessee Titans versus the 1-2 Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins here, they're at home, but boy, is their offense bad. So Tennessee is 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is 47 points. Why does this game have such a high over-under? The Dolphins cannot score. They cannot move the ball. They cannot get first downs, and Tennessee's not really that much better. But when you look at these two squads, Tennessee averages 16 points a game. The Dolphins average 11 points a game. On defense, Tennessee gives up 26. Miami gives up 24. Now, Miami actually has one of the better offensive rosters in the NFL. They have Mostert, they have Achin, they have Hill, Waddle, Berrios. They have weapons everywhere, but their quarterback is hurt. There's no quarterback. Skylar Thompson, look, he's not good in any way whatsoever. Is he capable of beating Tennessee? Yes, maybe, but he got hurt. He got knocked out. They brought in Boyle. Boyle's been on the Dolphins for 6 hours, and he was filling in. He's had a horrible career. He's just a backup, but he hasn't been a very good backup at all. That's Greer's issue. He's the GM. He had a quarterback who's always hurt. He has concussion problems, and they didn't pick up a decent backup, knowing that there was like a 50-50 chance Tua gets knocked out at some point this season. That's on him. That's on the Dolphins' upper management. But Tennessee, Will Levis, I guess you could say they had a better game this week. Tennessee's not good at all. They're winless. Who would you want to play? You want to play the Dolphins right now because the Dolphins have no quarterback. This is the Titans' chance to finally get their first win. You have Levis, you have Pollard, you have Calvin Ridley. I have Tennessee winning their first game versus a rudderless Miami Dolphins team, winning this one 17-13, covering the spread. I'm going with the under. This game's going to be pretty boring. But it should have been a really easy win for the Dolphins if they had a serviceable backup quarterback. Then our final game on Monday at 8:15 p.m. on ABC, the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks undefeated versus the 2-1 Detroit Lions coming off of that nice win. The Lions are at home. They're 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 49 points. This is going to be a fun game. This is a game where there could be a lot of points scored. The Seahawks are coming off of that beatdown of the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins only had 130 yards. They have Geno Smith. They average 24.3 points a game. They give up 14.3 points a game. Detroit has to get their offense a little better, but they're not bad. Right now they average 20.7 points a game. They give up 17.7 points a game. Last year they had a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. Both teams have stacked rosters. Seattle has Geno Smith. They have Zach Charbonnet. They have Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker did not play week 3. Might be back week 4, but even if he doesn't, they still have a decent run game. They have DK Metcalf. But Detroit, they have Montgomery. They have Gibbs. They have Williams. St. Brown came back and played. They have a really good roster. Yes, their defense is a little banged up as of right now, but they are at home. This is a game, to me, that's also a 50-50 game. This could go either way. Both teams are moving the ball at will right now. I'm going to go with the Lions to pull out a close win here, 27-24, not cover the spread, but going with the over. But this is a game you have to watch because Seattle's more than capable of dropping the Lions down to 500. But the Lions, they were one of the best teams in the nation last season. They can be a lot better than they've played so far this season. They just have to be healthy, and they just have to get a couple things right on the offensive side. But that's our breakdown. That's our really early predictions for Week 4 of the 2024 NFL football season. Go ahead, hit that like button, and subscribe. If you have any comments about these games or anything else, drop them below, and I'll respond. Thank you.